Hey, you're listening to Peyton McCormick. I play Rem Tokimiya in Final Fantasy Type-0 HD, and you're listening to Final Fantasy Union.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another special edition of the Final Fantasy Union podcast to celebrate the release of Final Fantasy Type-0 HD. I'm your host Daryl, and I'm joined again by Dan from Square Enix.
Hello.
And the lovely Peyton McCormick. Hey Peyton.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going really well.
I hear it's very sunny over there again.
It is. I'm loving it. It's about sunny and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is Celsius, but it's really lovely.
It's like 30-ish degrees.
Yeah, high 20s. High 20s.
It's hot.
We
you
never
can
get
go
those
outside
temperatures
and
here.
get a nice tan in one day. So come to LA, everybody.
I just came back from LA and I already miss it. The sun, that is.
Yeah, come back. Yeah, you're like, not the traffic, not the people, not the smog.
So Peyton has been active for quite a few years now and has appeared in a few hit TV shows such as The Mentalist and General Hospital, but everyone listening may recognise her as the voice of Rem in Type-0 HD.
Hooray! Woo!
Yeah.
We love Rem.
Woo.
So before we dive into questions there, I'd like to remind everyone that Final Fantasy Union is part of a podcast series called Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts Union, and it's presented by the Gaming Union Network and Square Enix. It will come out on the iTunes Store, FinalFantasyUnion.com, and YouTube.com/FFUnionVids. So, this first question is from Captain Paul Lamar. He wants to know, what attracted you to this role?
Well, what attracted me to it was that they decided to cast me. So that's awesome. But when I'd originally gotten the copy, it gives you a little brief character description, kind of a photo of the character, and then a few lines of dialogue. And honestly, I kind of was attracted to the character from the get-go because she was kind of similar to me, but she had a couple of daggers. She looked like a badass. It was kind of something that anyone would want to do, really. And we didn't know that it was going to be Final Fantasy. That was not something that was in the title anywhere. It was under a coded name, so I knew it was going to be a video game, and it looked like something I would have wanted to play anyway. It looked pretty familiar, so I thought maybe it'll be something that people will know about or play. So lucky me that it ended up being Final Fantasy, but I was attracted to it from the get-go just because it seemed really cool.
So moving on to the next question from Sword Apollo 7. What was your favourite part about playing Rem?
My favorite part about playing Rem was honestly just going in and discovering the story that was unfolding in this game. Because I had no idea what was on the table. I didn't have any idea what to expect. And so when I walked in and you see these amazing graphics and this story that is really emotionally charged, you know, I was crying in some of the recording sessions even because I was just like, oh my God, this is so amazing. So my favorite part was just like getting involved in that story. Usually the characters that I play are comedic and it's really lighthearted. So to be able to do something kind of serious and intense was a pleasure because I just don't get to do that very often. Usually I like to do the comedic stuff, and the dramatic stuff they usually give to tall brunettes, not short blonde girls. So hopefully when people see me in this role or hear me in this role, they can kind of give me some more dramatic stuff to play with.
Cool. Actually, you mentioned that, the story is, watching it unfold is your favourite part, but did you find it easy to follow, to understand?
Yeah, you only have one side of it. You only have your lines to look at. But as they're putting it together, they're kind of doing it in front of you because you're in some of the takes matching, like lip syncing, because they've already had the finished Japanese version. So you can see what's going on to an extent. There are a lot of holes that I've been able to fill in just like by looking online or by hearing about it from other people. But you do get a good sense of what's going on just off of the little bit that you have and then what you see in front of you. You have enough that you can feel it.
Just out of curiosity, do you get to record the lines in order that they would appear in the game then, or do they kind of free-for-all it?
It's kind of a free-for-all. I think for the most part, there is at least on the day, it'll be kind of in an order. It won't be totally random, but it certainly does get kind of...
So that must get quite confusing then when you're trying to piece it all together.
Well, from minute to minute, it makes sense. When you step back and look at the whole session, yeah, it's chaos. But from minute to minute, it makes sense because you can kind of see what's going on in front of you. They have the screen in front of you. You can see, the characters. So you can kind of get a sense of what's going on. But every now and then you'd have to re-record something that didn't work from the time before, and that would be totally random because you might not even remember the context that it came from, and you're just like, this one line was weird. And that's when you really have to ask questions like, what was going on? What did they respond to me with? So that you can truthfully record something that sounds like someone would naturally say it instead of something that's totally out of context.
Well, yeah, because I guess you might be in a completely different emotional mindset at that point as well.
Yeah, and, it's been a long time. It can go, any given amount of time. And with so much going on in between, sometimes you really do need a refresher.
Okay, well, this next question is from Dema Varman, who wants to know, was there any part of Rem's character that you saw in yourself? And if so, did that affect the way you portrayed her?
Yes, we actually did have a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences. I found Rem to be really innocent, but not naive. Like, she's very smart and grounded and mature, but she's got this like hopefulness about her, this innocence about her, that keeps her from being too serious and too kind of old or motherly. So she doesn't have the kind of advice that a mother would give, but definitely not that of a normal 17-year-old girl, which I've found that, I do have the same kind of hopefulness about me, but I might not be as grounded as Rem is. I find that I can be kind of like fluttery and scattered and spontaneous and crazy, and I think she's very grounded and she's not chaotic. She's got a sense of what's going on around her at all times. And when, like, for example, I'm not going to give any of the story away, but like in times when Machina needs advice or something like that, she always says the right thing. She's always got good advice to give. So I think that, she's also got this very strong feminine energy about her, which I hope that I have in my everyday life. Because she's very feminine, very girly, but no one would mess with her. She's very strong. She doesn't give off a vibe that says you can mess with her. She gives off a vibe that says she's dangerous. But at the same time, she's very girly and feminine and bubbly. It's a good combination, and I hope that that's something that I portray myself personally.
Yeah, Rem's actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but she's the strongest magic user in Class 0,
I believe
right?
so, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's one thing I also really like. I love that she's got this thing with magic, because when I was even like playing when I was a little kid, I feel like those are the things that I would kind of like pick and choose about the characters that I would be when I was just like playing and, playtime as a child. So, and I was also certified with daggers. So that's something that we're also similar. I don't know if I'm quite as skilled as Rem, but maybe I could pretend I am in movies.
Still, it's something I'm definitely going to jot down just in case we ever end up in the same room.
In case we ever meet in person, yes, I have experience with daggers.
Actually, did you know that I spoke to the director of Type-0 HD, Hajime Tabata, a while ago, and did you know Rem's actually one of his favourite characters because, quote unquote, he likes to use it because he's cute, so very feminine. So that's another fan from that kind of angle.
Good. Well, I like that. That makes me happy.
Cool. So let's move on to the next question by Theodore70941. And he asks, were there any parts when recording that took a lot of work to get right?
There was definitely a lot of translating that had to be done, because when you get the Japanese translations, they're not always spot on. So every now and then we'd come across a sentence that just did not make any sense, and you would have to find a way to reword it in a way that would make sense in the amount of time it needed to be in with the exact same cadence, because a lot of the time we were matching movements with the mouth. So to try and make something that made no sense in English make sense in the exact amount of time we needed it to make sense in, there was a lot of replacing different words, trying things out. saying sentences and then being like, okay, that just makes absolutely no sense at all. But in terms of getting like the emotion right and stuff like that, there really wasn't very much of an issue because they're the best of the best. They're very clear about what they want. And usually when you're recording, you have a lot of chances to get it right. So, especially with the Japanese version that they would play you, a lot of the time they would say, here's the Japanese version, try and bring some of that to it. And every now and then you would get, a paragraph that you have to read, and the Japanese version is 2 seconds long. And so they'll be like, okay, how do I bring all of, this paragraph, bring that to that? And also vice versa. Sometimes you'd have one word and the Japanese would be playing and it would go on for 30 seconds. And so there was little things like that. But for the most part, it was easy peasy. They're so clear. And honestly, I was so emotionally charged and into it that it was cake. It's a lot, in my opinion, easier than acting on screen or, modeling or doing anything like that where you're trying to convey emotion, because, you can do whatever you want with your face and body. You don't have to be conscious of that. You're just trying to get the voice out. And that's something that most of us have, luckily the ability to do, and we do probably a little too much, is talk. And to be able to not worry about what you're wearing, what you look like, what you're doing with your hands, what you're doing with your face, and to just be going. It's like when you're reading a book to a little kid or telling a really funny story to your friends or telling a really sad story. It's more fun because you're not worried about the rest of it.
Cool. Well, then this next question is from Lizzie, who wants to know, A, have you listened to Rem's theme? And B, if so, how do you think it represents your character?
I have been listening to Rem's theme. I really like it, and I do think it represents her well because it's kind of an understated, very calming, but also very serious. It kind of gets you amped up, but not in a way that you're wanting to go out and burn the world down. It's kind of like this quiet strength. And I really like it. And it reminds me, actually, of the song that I would listen to when I would get ready to play Rem, which was Neon Bible by Arcade Fire, which might seem kind of random to some people, but for some reason, the emotion and feeling in that song really got me to where I needed to be emotionally to be Rem. And I do think that, oddly, those two songs sound very similar. If you play them side by side, they kind of go together. So I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it's because it is the mood of Rem. It's kind of who she is. And you can pick up on that whether you're trying to play her or whether you're playing her in the game, whether you're just listening to the soundtrack.
Cool. And Craig Griffiths asks, have you ever played any of the other Final Fantasy games?
I haven't played them myself. I've listened to the soundtracks, and I loved Kingdom Hearts. I would actually sit and watch my brother play Kingdom Hearts for hours and hours. I was so emotionally invested in that game. My sister and I would sit there after school and bake cookies, have popcorn, and we would just watch my brother play Kingdom Hearts because if we touched that game, it was World War III. It was like a mental breakdown. He was so protective over it. But we loved it. And I think that the plot-heavy kind of themes that go on, I just think it's such an intense story. And there's so many, just cool themes that happen throughout. And I can't give away storylines to people who haven't played it. It gets so intense, all these different storylines. And I don't know how the characters interact with each other. And in Kingdom Hearts, I would sit there and get so emotionally involved in it. And I know it's the same with all the Final Fantasy games. People love these characters and they get really into it. Hours of their lives go, weeks, months of their lives go to these games, years maybe for some people. And it's because they're awesome.
Yeah, speaking of the music, actually, you mentioned that you're a big fan of without actually playing the games, which is really interesting because a lot of, it's usually the other way around. Yeah,
well, it's because my brother would play them pretty much, and he would download them on iTunes. They'd come to my cloud, and I would listen to it too. It's good music.
Which one's your favorite, though? Which game has the best soundtrack, do you reckon?
Oh, gosh.
If you had to pick one.
I don't even know, because they just come on shuffle. I'm really into Rem's theme right now, honestly. I'm just going to listen to that on repeat for like days, I'm sure.
Okay, so next question is from Harley Darks Crawley. What has been the most rewarding part of voicing a Final Fantasy character?
I think the most rewarding part was, the after effect that's happening right now. It's really cool because I didn't know what I was doing at first. I had no idea how big a deal this was. I had no idea, how intense it was with the fans and all of that. So I think the most rewarding part is probably even yet to come when I actually get and sit and play this game, because I haven't gotten to play it yet. So I really want to sit and hear it all and hear the other characters, and it'll probably make so much more sense to me once I actually sit and play it. I'll probably love it 10 times more than I already do now. But hearing fan response and seeing some comments that I've seen online where people say that she's their favorite character and they love her and all of that stuff, I had no concept of that while I was recording it. I had no idea that that would happen or that people would respond to this character. So I think that might even be the only role that I've ever done so far where I've gotten such an amazing response. So I'm kind of taken aback by people actually playing with this character and loving her and talking about how much they like her online and how much they want to hug her. Some fans have been saying, and things like that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the fact that my voice has anything to do with that is amazing to me. So that's really rewarding. And I'm sure it's only going to get more rewarding. So I'm excited to see what the future brings and to play this game myself.
I guess you're also in kind of a unique position as well, because not too many people get to play a video game where they're actually in it and play as themselves.
Yeah, and when I would play video games when I was younger, like DOA, I was super connected to those characters. I thought I was Kasumi, and now I'm going to be playing this game where that is my voice. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be so fun. But it's always weird to listen to yourself, so I wonder if I'm going to recognize my voice and be like, oh, it's weird. Because, even watching yourself on screen, it is kind of strange. A lot of actors don't even like watching themselves. So I'm wondering if it's going to be weird with voiceover, too. Am I going to be like, oh, it's weird to hear my own voice, or am I even going to notice? Because it's so seamless, this game. I'm like, am I going to realize this is me?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. If I was ever... listening back on other podcasts and other things, where my voice is somewhere on the internet, I can barely listen to myself there. So I don't know if I could ever be in a game and play that game.
So I'm just I wonder if it's going to be weird like that. I'm really excited to play it.
Well, kind of on that theme, are you looking to do more voice work in the future?
Yes, I've got to do more voice work in the future. Mostly because it is the most fun acting job I have ever had. You don't have to worry about how you look, like I said before. You don't have to worry about anything, really. You just get in there. You don't have to memorize anything beforehand. You show up comfortable, and then you just get to play, and you just get to use your imagination. And because there's so little that you're given, actually, on the day, you get to use your imagination 50 times more than you would ever imagine. If you're actually in a voiceover room, it is... not that much is in there. It's a giant microphone in front of your face, a little stool behind you, a music stand with your lines on it, and then maybe a screen in front of you to show you the graphics. And that's it. So you have nothing. It's probably very similar to when actors are on a green screen. They have nothing to go off of, and you just kind of have to put yourself back in your 4-year-old mind and be creating an entire world of imagination around you. And that is so fun as an actor. It is so fulfilling. Because if you're on a set, there's only so much they can do, especially since CGI has come so far. It's really rare that you're in the actual world that you're supposed to be in. You have to be on a set that is, extremely decked out and dressed to feel like you're in the actual environment. So, when you're doing something like CGI or voiceover, it's amazing because you're just it's like when you were a little kid. It's when you just put yourself in a complete random world of imagination that you create yourself and have a blast. It's kind of why I don't like seeing movies of books. Like, I will never go see Harry Potter the movie, because what's in my imagination that I created is so much cooler than anything they could have put on screen, and I don't want to see Daniel Radcliffe's face if I ever were to reread those books again, you know?
So does that mean you're going to be like dead against mocap?
No, no, I'm definitely not going to be dead against it. But it's just like things that I've worked really hard to create the world in my imagination, like, it's sacred to me. And so the time I spent in that little voiceover booth is like sacred, because it's like a little imagination land that I created. Even though you can kind of see some graphics on the screen, you really have to put yourself there. It's really fun.
Cool. Actually, to go into that a little bit more, Lizzie asked a question about how much context were you given before reading your lines? And you mentioned, where you go in there, you kind of create this, this imagination, this landscape in your mind. I mean, were you given a lot of direction into what that would be, how that would be shaped, or is it purely, you're left to your own devices to figure out?
I mean, they're very clear when they tell you, like, right now you're really stressed out, you're at a 10. Or, they'll tell you you're really sad here, or you're just totally happy, you're in a good mood here. But that's about as clear as they are. They're not going to give you like, all right, let's get into the moment. They're not like acting coaches who are telling you what to do step by step. It's really up to you as the actor to make those choices. Because also they're not actors and they've never been actors. They have no idea how to tell you like that kind of direction necessarily. It's all coming from a very technical perspective on their part. And, you're given the context of the Japanese version for a lot of the lines. But like I said, it's so different just in terms of like the amount of time they're even speaking that you really have to do everything on your own for the most part. And you don't even have the other characters' lines. So a lot of the like parts where I'm talking to Machina, there'd be things where I have no idea what questions he's asking me. I don't know what I'm responding to, so I would just come up with it in my head. And it'll be really interesting to see if everything is actually what I thought it was when I play the game. But yeah, you're given a little bit. I would say if I had to give it a scale, you're given probably 30%, and you have to come up with the rest. So it's a lot of imagination.
Yeah, it must be really fun, but also a little bit scary.
It can be intimidating just because Japan is on the phone, and if you do a bad job, it was my first big voiceover job, so I didn't want to screw up and have them be like, she's terrible, get her out, call someone new, so it was intimidating on that level just because, I knew what I was doing and I had to be confident in that, but I didn't really have anything else to compare it to. So I just kind of had to hope that this is, the caliber of professionalism that they expected. I just had to hope that I was giving them that. And I hope that I did. I assume that I did, since they didn't cast me away and fire me. And since I'm getting a pretty decent response from fans, I'm like, okay, maybe I did all right, my first big voiceover job. So maybe it'll lead to some more work, hopefully, in the future, because I had the time of my life recording. So hopefully I get to do some more.
So this next question is from Theodore70941 again, and he wants to know, what was your favorite part of recording in the game? Like, were there any specific lines that you really enjoyed?
I wish I could remember all of the dialogue. Some of it was so crazy and complicated that I would be like, what am I even talking about? And then I would figure it out after asking them a few questions. But I loved recording all of the reactions and the punches and the fighting noises, the grunts and things like that, because when I would play video games growing up, that's what we would always kind of, you do it over and over and over. I had all those sounds memorized, and I thought they were so funny. And so to get to record those huh, and things like that, I was like, oh my God, this is just too great. I could hardly keep a straight face while I was doing it, because I was just so I was just geeking out that I was recording those punching noises and screams and continue, those kind of things like that just make me die. It's so funny. So, of course, in the game, she's getting smacked around. It's not funny, but to record the actual noises is it's just like you can't believe you're actually doing it. So I would have to say the crazy grunts and action noises were my favorite parts of recording, like as far as that's concerned.
Cool. I think that's pretty much all the questions we have, actually.
Don't want to know about how I was sick?
Well, if you've got any more stories you want to share, feel free.
Yeah, because, I hope I'm not giving too much away, but in the game, there is a part where Rem does have a sickness. And I was freaking out because when you book a voiceover job, you want your voice to be top-notch, like healthy as it can be. And I, of course, the day we're going in to record, have like a mild case of bronchitis, and I'm trying so hard to like drink tea, cover it, keep it a secret, because I didn't want to get replaced on the job. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I am hacking up a lung. I sound terrible. And sure enough, when I show up, they're like, are you good at, like coughing, sounding really sick? And I was like, I might be able to. Let's see what I can do. And they were like, oh my gosh, that's a really convincing cough. Like, that sounds like you really got like some phlegm up in there. Like, you sound really sick. And I was like, yeah, I've really worked hard on this. It's a lot of studying that goes in. You have to really work hard to get good at this. And I left there going, thank God that's what we were recording, is because I was so sick and I thought I was going to like lose the job. And instead it worked out perfectly. So if you're playing the game and I sound really ill, that is not acting. That is bronchitis.
So there you go.
Geez, bronchitis is pretty serious as well.
Yeah, that is how method I am.
Cool. Well, yes. Are there any more tidbits you want to share?
Oh, God, no, I think that's it. I think I've talked too much. Better edit this down.
Cool, yeah, so thanks so much for speaking to us. We are going to have some more interviews planned with the rest of the Type-0 HD cast, so if you're listening to this interview and it's the first one you've listened to, go listen to the others, and also be sure to listen to the other ones we have in the future. But yeah, thanks again, Peyton.
Yeah, don't judge their show based on my interview, please.
I think it's a very good representation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if you say so, I'll take it. Thanks for having me. This was super fun.